Okay, welcome everyone to the first meeting of Community Governance Oversight. And I'm just going to get started on the agenda. First of all, there's updates and announcements. And this would be normally, I mean, those who are in Capital Circle will recognise this is normally where anyone here who has done anything related to community governance oversight would update us. So I think that's only me and Alison so far. So Alison, you did the town hall slides. Yeah, so
yeah, I was hoping that was what you referred to. Otherwise, I dropped the ball on something. But
yeah, and I've just arranged the meeting and been setting up stuff, but we're now getting and I'm just going to move on to the next item, which is Treasury. I put Treasury as the first item, Andre and Miroslav, in case you didn't want to stick around for the whole meeting. So, okay, because I was conscious last time that you were here for the whole meeting, but I'm not going to assume that you want to be here for the whole meeting. So, I suppose for actions on this, Andre, I just need to arrange with you and Miroslav to hand over the wallet addresses.
Yes, we can do, well, whenever you're available, we can do it tomorrow if you want.
Because I'm meeting with you tomorrow anyway, aren't I? So we can do that, and then.
Yes.
I just asked, not that I need them necessarily, but is there any sort of documentation about how the Treasury will operate and that sort of oversight of the Treasury funds? Does that exist?
Yes, we will document our own process.
Okay.
So I'm just taking notes in the agenda, so we'll do that. I'll work with Andre and Miroslav on that.
When you talk about documenting the Treasury process, do you mean documenting the process for distributing the funds from the proposal supporting this group, or do you mean overseeing the whole Treasury?
No, I don't mean everything. I just mean just for this group. But for the moment, because we are discussing scope in this meeting, but I don't think. Well, do you have a view on that, Alison?
Sorry, can I just interrupt a second? Joe's just messaged to say she's in the waiting room. Can you see her?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just submitted her. There you go.
Well, one view I will take that is a little bit different than how the circle seemed to handle its funds is on projects that I'm managing. I do either one of two things for my team. Either I distribute the ADA when I get it and trust that the team will perform what's asked of us, because they provide funds up front. Or if I'm going to distribute the funds upon delivery of some item, I take the currency risk myself. In other words, I don't, and you all should decide, but you should think through if you're going to pay later, and you're holding the ADA, then I think you also have a responsibility to take the currency risk. Because the individual doesn't have the opportunity to decide how they want to handle the currency risk.
I usually just get upfront agreement that it will be paid at date of receipt, and then if there's issues, I'll arrange to pay early. So if someone really wants access to the funds, then we can then I negotiate that. But
right, but the question I'm raising is
if we can take details of this offline.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Because we only have limited time, I'm afraid. So, but yeah, by all means, and I refer back to the Discord. If we can start discussing extended issues like this on Discord. I know Discord is still the community governance Oversight does need to, so if you can start to use that, and then we can see. But basically, the first thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to transfer over the wallets to Andre and Miroslav. And then yes, of course, Kenrick and Phil, we need to work out how to pay people. But if we take that asynchronously, then we can work that out.
What I actually meant was more like, how would the transfer process happen? How would the reporting of that transfer and that sort of stuff? And then if the responsibility of the treasurer changes, how will that be communicated? All that sort of just details of how we would manage that process.
We'll begin the documentation with Andre, and we can share that again
cool.
in Discord. Okay, moving on to, and I put this first as well because I wasn't sure how long people could be in the meeting, is the first of our deliverables. This is an initial commitment, just attending the meeting according to the proposal. But the first thing is for survey design. And really, we have to, this is quite an open question. So I've just said, who wants to commit, who wants to be assigned to survey design, work on survey design, and commit to that delivery, which in essence is how to design a survey that fits the parameter change process. And I've left the link to the oversight proposal there. Alison, you've already expressed an interest in this.
Well, I think my interest was more on the report writing, not the survey design side of things. But
okay,
I wanted to. I think we're at a step prior to designing the survey because, well, number one, I'd love to have some open conversation about whether it even makes sense to have a survey. Maybe we're committed to it already, but absent some feedback from IOG around what they plan to, how they plan to move forward with this pilot, I think we're a little stuck on that one. I can't imagine designing the survey absent knowing what their kickoff process for the parameters pilot is.
Yeah, there is the issue of the lack of information that we have. The way that I suppose the first deliverable in the order of deliverables, if you read the proposal, is surveys and then retrospectives and then a report. The reason why we're starting with surveys is to ask that question, Alison, is what do IOG mean by that? Kenrick, sorry, I'm not sure if Kenrick or Thibaut were first. But.
Oh no, actually your response was helpful because I kind of wanted to amplify what Alison was saying, but maybe I'm getting ahead of the game too, is that, like when I went through your agenda, the thing that is of strong interest to me is the oversight of the DREPs. And maybe this can be part of a survey. I guess what I'm interested in is getting more details about the overall design and then doing some analysis as to what the potential benefits and risks of that design are for the community. But I also acknowledge I'm kind of, I'm a little bit more of an internal person, in terms of thinking through and doing analysis, but I also respect and do really understand the importance of surveying the community and kind of understanding their perspective on these issues.
Yeah, again, it's a question of where this group starts from. Sorry, Tina, I'll get to you in a minute. So again, I suppose this is what we need to work out here. We can go on to talk about scope after this, but there's a hanging question of what deliverables do we address first from the proposal as it was originally drafted, Alison. So, and the sequence of tasks are design surveys, internal and external, do retrospectives, and then finally do a report. So if you by all means, yes, you can work on a report, but that report is dependent upon those things that come before.
Yeah, no, no, I totally understand that. I just meant, I think when I volunteered, I was saying more that I'm good at report writing as opposed to survey design being a natural skill of mine. Yeah, I can come back to that, but
yeah,
okay.
I actually want to circle that conversation in a sense that one thing what I like about Catalyst is that you cannot hear me.
Yeah,
I can hear me.
yeah.
That we do not know the parameters and what the IOG has in the plan. And Alison brought up a good risk point, and this could be the reason why we started first survey. And what we do know is we know how the process works, and we know some parameters what has impact over almost anything. Like, for example, if you take commute advisor, these percentual ratings, like impact has 50% of rating, and feasibility, audibility has only 25% of that rating, doing that overall score. So even going into these kinds of details, these are parameters. And now what we can do in this survey, and yes, I would like to be part of survey design. That's why I'm talking about it.
I mean, at this stage, because we don't really know quite what we're doing, it's more about maybe expressing interest. So I think absolutely, Tivo, if you're interested in designing survey, then I'll just register you as being interested in that, and then we can then take that offline and start working on that. I think, Vanessa, you're also interested in survey design as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm interested on, like, in regards to the internal survey. Like, the external survey is clear to me, it's about the community. Who are we surveying for an internal survey? And then the question would be, what's the data outcome of that survey?
Okay.
What's the use case of that data, and what are we collecting data about?
Yeah. Okay. The conversation I had with Dor, and this is where this comes from, is the surveys are essentially the approach of IOGs to surveys, and they made this distinction, you're right, Phil, between internal and external. I think I expanded upon that in the proposal after questioning Dor. So if you're aware of the parameter change process, which Tivo referred to, and also Harris presented, let's say there's a parameter change. Okay, the parameter change comes in, it goes to the bicameral council, and at key points in the process, once a point in the process is complete, we come in and do a survey. Okay, and there's two types of surveys we do. The internal survey is a survey in people who did the work, like, for example, the technical council, or Catalyst Circle. The external survey would be the community. So it would be,
okay.
Do you see? Yeah. Vanessa. Oh, Joe.
Joe, I think, yeah.
I didn't see that.
It's got a little hand up.
You're on mute, Joe.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, had you all on mute. What is the step before? What's happening with the step before in terms of IOG's engagement here? Because it really, I mean, we can get set up absolutely, and it's absolutely, awesome to do that, get organized, meet each other, all of that stuff. But yeah, seeing as they kind of instigated the proposal, and they know that it's been funded, and they know we have a group, why is there no engagement, and what can we do about it? Because that's, that's key.
Address that maybe?
Please, that'd be great.
I kind of see this more as they're nudging us as the community into the direction that they would like to see, but I don't see IOG needing to be, or ideally, involved with these types of things. because we don't want them to be a centralized point of anything really. At the moment they are, but these initiatives are designed to slowly tease out previous responsibilities of oversight that IOG has had, and put it into the community hands. So part of our job, like part of the early circle job, is to work out what this looks like and start the seed that grows into community governance oversight and whatever that looks like in the future. So that's why I'd say they're not here.
Yeah, could I just stop?
Sure, I get that. I do get that. I just, you know, I don't have anything to, you know, to reference as to what the parameter changes are that they would like to make. I mean, I've seen the DREPS thing land, but, you know.
Can I remind people that can we take discussions and debates offline? And so keep it brief. So if you can move on, who's next hand, Vanessa or Alison?
Yeah, what I was gonna say pretty much agrees with Phil, that I'm not really that convinced that we need IOG to kind of be heavily involved with this. If you look at the proposal, which is, I've put a link to it in the agenda, there are 3 things that we're supposed to be surveying on. And obviously this will have changed a little bit because of the introduction of DREPS, but we're meant to be surveying challenge setting, catalyst circle problem sensing, and government's parameters. So we can certainly do the first 2 without any like real engagement from IOG.
Right, Alison.
Yeah, well, that's interesting what Vanessa just said, because then I'm actually a bit confused regarding the overall scope of the group. I thought the surveys were only related to the parameter changes. Is the idea to design surveys around the community's perspective on the circle and the challenge settings?
I'd say yes. Yeah, I don't know what other people think.
I mean, we have a separate item to talk about scope. On this particular issue, the general focus of the governance oversight proposal, we've assumed, Alison, has been to be on the parameter changes in our discussion. And by these are kind of mostly offline discussions between ourselves, you know, individually. And I suppose now we need to come together in this group to decide to tighten this up a bit and to decide what exactly are we doing, particularly for the Fund 7 proposal. You know, so for the Fund 7 proposal, should it just address parameter changes, or as Vanessa points out, in the actual proposal, the scope is broader than that. So we could do more than that. But then there's, I kind of have been saying to people, just concentrate on the parameter changes. And why have I said that? It's because of our limited funds and the limited time and resources we have. That's the only reason why I've sort of like focused on that. Can we move on to, I can't just concentrate time, because can we move on to the Fund 8 proposal? Because this is kind of relevant to that. Maybe actually.
Can I just bring in a quick thing about?
Yeah, go on.
Stephen, could I just bring in a quick thing about these surveys? We've mentioned 3 internal, 3 external, and then we've mentioned 3 main groups that we're surveying. Is that one survey covering each of those groups, like one survey, and you pick which group you're in, and then the survey's surveying you, or one survey for each group at a different time during the process?
Yeah, again, this is quite confusing, isn't it? Because the way that's costed is it's assuming that we're doing everything. So it's assuming that we're doing. Hold on, it's assuming that we're doing a survey for each of the governance groups. So they would be parameter changes, challenge teams, and I think the other one is circle prioritized problems.
Technical council. So I mean, we could design a survey that says which team are you in. Here's the questions assigned to those groups, right? And then the output would be these groups said this, these groups said that. So the questions are the same across the board. Yeah. If I don't know if that's useful or not.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the logic of the agenda, rather than talk about the Fund 8 proposal, maybe I should move up to the scope item. Because really, this is what this is hinging on. So I'll move forward the scope item if everyone agrees.
Yeah, sure, that
Yeah,
sounds good.
because the logic of this is there's no point in talking about the proposal until we know the scope. Okay,
Yeah.
so, and that relates to just what you've just been saying, Phil. Okay, so there's two aspects of scope. Okay, one, there's the existing scope, so the scope of the Fund 7 proposal. So maybe there's the question of, and I suppose we've just been touching on this now, is what do we want to do and what can we do in the next 3 months, given the funds and the time we have. So should we start there?
As you do that, Steve, you have the oversight of D reps there. Can you just give a quick update on where that stands and like what current plans are for D reps?
Right, that's complicated. Again, there's the question of, well, first of all, it'd be interesting to hear, I mean, I had a conversation, I think just with Alison about this, which suggested that community government, and I think also Vanessa a little bit, that community governance oversight oversees governance. Okay, we oversee governance initiatives. So we can, if everyone here agrees, maybe we should agree our overall purpose. If that's our overall purpose, then that includes anything that comes from IOG that relates to governance in Catalyst. Stop me if you disagree with me. Okay, and that would include DREPs, Kenrick, because DREPs are a governance initiative. Felix is being kind of, and others have taken the initiative on the DREPs response, and he did he and members from the community did a series of Saturday swarm sessions on the DREP issue, and there's quite a lot of questions in the community. If you saw Discord, on Telegram as well, a lot of discussion around this, and this resulted in the draft of a letter. I think JP led on that, ran on that, and that letter was presented at Catalyst, was picked up by Joey, who is the toolmaker, TiVo's successor on Circle, the toolmakers maintainers Circle rep, and he presented it at the Catalyst Circle meeting. And I'm not quite sure of Harris's response. Vanessa, do you have more? Could you summarize that more?
Yeah, kind of. He basically said, yeah, we're really glad that the community has done this and we think it's great. And the letter suggests some kind of workshops to talk more about what the DREPs are. And he said, yeah, we love that idea and it's been passed around IOG and we're really into it, but we can't commit to it. And we can't give a date, but we're into it. So that's kind of where it was at.
Yeah. So again, I mean, so my gut feeling, Kenrick, and again, I'd like to hear it, is that yes, we can, I think we should include DREPs in the scope of what we do, but then it comes back to the question of the resources that we have.
Yeah, I can sense the tension there, right? Because even without DREPs, you have a lot on your plate. On the other hand, DREPs is a very high priority thing. So I'll take your guidance on that. I mean, I'm interested in the DREPs particularly because my interest in sort of the design parts of this. But I also want to respect what's feasible within scope for this phase of the project.
Yeah, I mean, also it's an interesting issue because of, okay, Fund 7 has funded this for 3 months from today, I suppose, so until around about May. The Fund 8 proposal, I know I've been kind of a bit late in that, Kenrick, but we can include DREPs in that Fund 8 proposal, and we can expand upon it, okay, expand the funding so we have more time and resources potentially to pay ourselves for that. And we, again, I can work with you or anyone else here on that Fund 8 proposal. I know we have under a week now, but we can come up with something that will resource this a lot better. But going back to DREPs, Vanessa, were you next or was it Matthias?
I think it was Matthias, actually.
Oh, Matthias.
Yeah, quick question on the DREPs, because I haven't heard anything new since I sent an application just for giggles. Is that going to be a thing in the next 3 months?
That's actually what I was going to say. So as far as I can see, it's kind of sunk without trace, you know. I know a couple of people who've applied and they've not heard anything either. And it just feels to me like I don't know, maybe IOG has realised they need to do some more thinking through, but if they're not communicating with us, I sort of wonder if this letter has been sent, and I wonder if part of our role could be to kind of chase that up and to follow it up and to encourage, I don't know, I mean, maybe Circle can do that as well. I think Joey's pretty keen to take that on, but I think that maybe part of our governance oversight could be to push for responses and see what exactly is happening, because there hasn't been anything.
Oh, many people.
Yeah, Alison.
Yeah, Vanessa, I was thinking exactly along the same lines, and I would like to give myself the action item to track down Harris on behalf of this group, if you all agree, and get him to tell me where IOG stands, number one, on the parameter change pilot, because if we're going to oversee that, I think we need some basic information, and number two, on the DREPs, so we can factor it into the proposal. So I'm happy to take that as an action item. No guarantee I'll be successful, but I will certainly make it my mission to try to get some information before our next meeting, or bring Harris to the next meeting.
Yeah,
I can ask tomorrow from Marek if he has any clue either, because he's a part of Catalyst team and maybe you might have some insight.
I mean,
That would be
I mean,
helpful.
Marek, okay. So I'm just taking notes here as well. So I'll probably rely on the recording of this meeting as well. Yeah, I mean, as people may know, I have been messaging, before I get to you, Joe, messaging Harris and Daniel regularly on this issue. So it's not through a want of trying. So this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, Joe, as well, about, you know, what is IOG's commitment. So maybe you want to talk on that a bit.
Yeah, following on from Phil's point, which is, you know, IOG transferring to the community. This is a perfect chance to do exactly that and survey the community and go, how did you feel about the way that IOG introduced the DREPs thing, and just do it. I bet we get a response after that.
And this
Sounds interesting.
yeah. Alison, you still got your hand up. Is that you, or is it some other point?
I had a totally unrelated point.
Go on.
My unrelated point was noting your skill at facilitating the meeting and also trying to take the notes. I was going to suggest we find a secretary. I'm not volunteering.
Yeah,
But if somebody,
I'm struggling here a bit, I must admit, because it's like I've discovered it's hard to take notes and facilitate at the same time.
It is.
So,
Yeah.
So if someone
Should we
can,
try and rotate it next time? Like maybe,
yeah.
I mean, I don't mind taking minutes next time and then passing it on, but I don't want to do it every time.
Yeah, okay. They're going to be a bit. It's going to be. This is our first meeting. It's going to be a bit rough, you know. So I'll try. The notes may not be as good as they could be, but we have the recording. But I agree.
well,
yeah.
And I mean, I'd be happy to. Lots of people are talking to me about wanting to be involved with various things. I think it's really nice to have a secretary, a dedicated secretary for the circle. I mean, I'm happy to talk to see if we could find a dedicated secretary, because I don't, it's not my interest.
Absolutely. Bear in mind that we don't have resources for that for the next 3 months. So,
Yeah, right. A volunteer secretary.
yeah, so but we can resource that. That's a good idea for the F8 proposal. So we could resource that for the F8 proposal.
All right.
And
I'll talk to
going
people.
roundabout to, I think, the scope issue, you did kind of raise, and maybe what Kenrick was touching upon. In essence, my judgment, again, people may disagree. I think we really only have resources to focus on one thing, like parameter changes or something like that. But this, what we're discussing about DREPs does kind of beg the question, should we be focusing on parameter changes? Because it seems that IOG has been stopped talking about parameter changes and now talking about DREPs. Kenrick, you know, so should our Fund 7 budget, which for what it is, which isn't very much, but for what it is, we could decide as a group, because we're autonomous, to focus on DREPs from now on. That we can do that, or we could focus on parameter changes.
Do those the 3 bodies that we've said we're going to internally review have much to say on DREPs? Like if we if we ask what the Catlett Circle, like, are we going to survey the Catlett Circle on DREPs without having much information? They'll just say, we don't have much information like you, right? Or some might have some more information. Because that's like, I believe there's a community engagement to give feedback back to IOG, but in regards to asking the CT team, the Circle, and the other one, I don't think
The technical council, which doesn't really exist.
I don't think there's much value in asking them about something that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. That's why I suggested, but just on that, on the survey issue and what we can do as an oversight group, I think that's why Alison suggested her action, because without any interaction with IOG, particularly Harris, we're kind of lost at sea. We don't really know what's happening.
Is it okay to not focus all the surveys on the same issue? Is it okay to split the internal and the external surveys and just start generating 2 data points this fund and look to generate new data points next fund that are more detailed and more connected?
My quick answer to that is yes, because we're autonomous. We're like Catlett Circle. We can do what we want to do, given what we think our remit is, and that's why I said if we express our remit as oversight of governance in Catalyst, if people here agree with that, that's our remit. Alison.
Sorry, my hand was not meant to be up, although I'll take the opportunity to say I do have to drop off a bit early in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I'll say my own sense is that the DREPs and the parameter changes are kind of the high profile, high priority things to try to influence. So I think that should be our focus. I think the circle problem sensing and the challenge setting are also quite important, but I feel like maybe the audit group has their work may overlap there a little bit. And also those things may be, those things are a little bit more established right now. Oversight of them is of value, but given all the changes that are coming forward, to me, the oversight of those changes and what's going to be, how those changes are going to be designed is what would be a good focus. And then maybe we just keep awareness of the circle and challenge setting issues, and if something comes up, maybe we put some focus on that.
Yeah, I agree. Before I move on to you, Phil, can I just ask, because Alison, you have to go soon, is there anything you wanted to raise before you go, or
Yeah, thank you. The last point that I'll make, and then I'll be quiet until I have to leave, is regarding oversight of the circle. It also seems to me that QA DAO, which I know you and Vanessa overlap here, but QA DAO independently is doing a fantastic job with oversight of the circle. And so I think that there's another reason this particular group doesn't need to focus on circle oversight, since there's already quite a lot happening there.
But maybe there's value to the community to hear the feedback from the circle about QA DAO's involvement, maybe.
Oversight of oversight.
Well, no, because that is the oversight, right? So we're yeah, okay, I don't know.
There are a couple of things in circle. I mean, I'm interested in what maybe Vanessa thinks of this. There's some things that, well, in my view, QA DAO do not oversee, arguably, and that is how does the prioritized problems, is it working? Is the prioritized problems process working? That if you read the proposal, that it does say oversight of the prioritized problems process, not necessarily oversight of Catlett Circle per se. There's also possibly, should Circle admin, should that have oversight? That's another thing. But so
in regards to
Phil, sorry.
Yes, in regards to the scope, I'm feeling like it's going to be difficult to write a quality survey that covers such diverse internal groups.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that perhaps one survey covering the 3 months for each of the groups would be better.
I think the survey roadmap as it's laid out, I would scrap completely and just have, I think what we need to decide is what governance initiative can we or should we focus on, for example, parameter changes or DREPs, and then just do surveys and retrospectives and reports on that.
Across internal and external.
Yeah. Because we simply didn't have the resources to do that, to do all of that for challenge teams and the other one. We don't have the time or resource to do that.
But for me, then the fact of surveying those bodies, there's not a lot of information we can get about stuff that doesn't exist, because those bodies already have input into IOG and stuff. Whereas I can see value for the community having a survey about their feelings, about what they want to see and this sort of stuff. That makes sense. We can build a body of data about the community's view and feelings, but the internal groups, for me, doesn't make sense to survey something that doesn't exist. Remind
us that we can turn this in. If it doesn't exist, we still have to design the process, Phil. Okay, and we still don't know what that process will look like as we have designed it. And that's what Kenrick is talking about as well.
But then I'd rather design it around something that we can obtain useful data from.
Now the question is, how should we approach oversight of any governance change? So what would a design of that look like? Not on a specific. That's the question I'm asking. Matthias.
Yeah, so on that note, then, if it's not specific, the abstract would be essentially, okay, the governance body, we ask them about, first of all, how do you think you're doing? And what do you think about the process? So 2 things. And then the external, that can be direct stakeholders, but then also the larger community. It's like, how do you think your representative or that group that you might not directly identify with is doing? And about the process, right? Because I think that is lacking. QA DAO does a phenomenal job in reporting what is going on, but the mismatch is like, okay, even the circle representatives, right? Some have more sophisticated methods of prioritize problem sensing. Some seem like, this is kind of my opinion, right? Making an assumption here, but that could be a thing. And that's not really what we signed up for, right? Because those are representatives. So I think those surveys might be useful.
Okay. I mean, I think I like that approach, Matthias, because it's much more generic. And I suppose, Phil, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's important at this stage with so many unknowns, is not to get caught up in the weeds of specific cases that we are a lot of them are theoretical. So I would suggest, and I'm not sure if others would agree, that we just design a generic approach to begin with, and then we can then dig into that into detail as we have become aware of the specifics as they come along. And that's something that Alison hopefully can get more information on when she chases Harris. Vanessa.
Can people hear me? My internet connection is jumping up and down. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's great.
Yeah, just on what Matthias was saying, I think there's kind of an issue if we're going to go for a generic approach to how should any governance change be surveyed. There's an issue about timing, basically. Are we surveying people about something that is planned to happen? How do they feel about how it was introduced and about the level of community engagement with that and blah, blah, blah? Or are we planning to survey once something has been put in place so that we can say to people, how's it working? And I kind of feel that there needs to be both, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that gives us an opportunity to do some work straight away, because if we made a decision, for example, to do oversight to DREPs, if we decide that we can do that, then we could do a survey of how IOG has handled the communication of DREPs to date. Okay, Alison.
Exactly.
I know I promised I wouldn't say anything more, but this really is my last comment.
Okay.
in the presentation Harris did about DREPs, in that workflow, he had laid out specific times in the process when surveys would be done. So just to remind that Harris in that presentation had a plan around the timing of surveys and how they fit into the process. Now, we don't necessarily have to follow that, but that's where, for me, I would really love to hear from Harris, where is IOD with that whole parameters workflow? So at least we understand if they have expectations for the timing of the surveys and the design of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. That was the workflow for parameter changes, not DREPs. You said DREPs at the beginning, just want to say, just to be clear.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I meant
no,
parameter changes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's confusing because all of a sudden we're not hearing about parameter changes any longer. We're just hearing about DREPs. That's why it's confusing, I think, as well. But you're right, Alison. There was a process. There seemed to be and again, this is quite frustrating. I know people are here, have had mixed messages from IOG on this. But there was a lot of excitement last November and December about parameter changes and about the technical council and the bicameral model, and everything was about that, and that's what gave rise to this proposal and the accompanying proposals. And Harris did a presentation where he set out a workflow where where each stage we would come in and then do our oversight surveys, our retrospectives, and our reports. The question is, I mean, also he also pointed out that process was not completed as well, Alison, didn't he? So it's kind of like this. It raises a number of questions. Is if we're going to do oversight of the bicameral system, for example, is that still valid? And I've asked this question of him several times over the past few months and haven't had a response on this. So again, it goes back to that issue of what response are we getting and what can we do? You know, and go on, Phil. Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, there's a pattern here, right? Like the audit circle got formed, had a bit of involvement, then disappeared again. So there could be design in what they're doing, right? There could be. I'm not saying that there is or isn't, but there is a pattern. They could just be overworked and not doing it, or they could be cloud seeding this processes, saying, hey guys, let's start getting this in place because it needs to be here so it's ready for when it's needed, right? Like this, what we're doing is the seed of the future community governance oversight.
I agree, Phil, but rather than second guess what IOG are doing, what in my view, what the community should do is do what we want to do.
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But we're here because of they cloud seed, and we're the rain that came from this. Where the river flows is up to us, right?
I think that's a very generous way of putting it. But
well, I mean, it's the normal way, and I think that's part of the joy of this process, that we can build what we want, but IOG has a plan if no one else does, right? And we will look to them to what they are thinking, but at the same time, we're free. It's a permissionless system. We can build and get support for whatever the hell we want. Okay. So. Yeah, anyway.
Vanessa, you have your hand up. So I think and then Kenrick.
Yeah, just from a kind of almost like a risk assessment perspective for this proposal, this Fund 7 proposal that we've come together to do, I just think maybe as a group, we need to have a think about what are we going to do if we don't get any or much engagement from IOG? Because at the moment we're kind of going, yeah, we'll talk to them and we'll hopefully get this and we'll hopefully get that and we'll respond. But if for whatever reason, lack of time or whatever, we don't get much, I just think we need to have an idea of what we're going to do instead.
Yeah, and actually, if I could, that was sort of what I was going to say sort of addresses your question, Vanessa. And that is, as a risk reduction, I think taking on both DREPs and the catalyst parameter changes is a good idea. And then secondly, I was kind of going to say, don't be totally dependent on what IOG is doing. Also try to survey the community. Let's take the parameter changes as an example. Why don't we, carefully document what the parameters are, which ones sort of are high priority for reconsidering, and get some input from the community, what the community thinks is a priority.
Absolutely.
And that might even drive and actually assist IOG and the Circle and the technical council in making some progress on this. I would also emphasize, even if it's gone slow with the parameter changes, I don't take that as a sign of either the lack of importance or the lack of intent about getting this done. I think that the reality is these are hard things. There's good people working on them, but they need support. So I think oversight can also be support on, accomplishing these things as well.
Yeah, we can take the initiative, Kenrick, and there's already stuff that we can work on. For example, on parameter changes, the community have already suggested a couple of parameter changes that they would like to see. So we can oversee that. We can say, I'm trying to think of an example. There's the apportion of Treasury to fund, and I think there's a CA one as well. So we can say the community have asked for this. This is what's happened, and so far we tell the oversight story of that. Similarly with DREPs, we could take the initiative on DREP oversight as well. So we could say, we just recall the fact that Joey did the letter to Circle and IOG responded in that way, and we record that, and then we see what happens next. Joe.
Yeah, it's following on from that same chain of thought. There has been already suggestions from various parts of the community on all of these things. So there's plenty to already find out from the community. And then also the other point was taking a step back from it all, that view of how things are being introduced at the moment. Like to me, that's like the fundamental issue, is that there is no communication with the community about, we think this might be a good idea. How should we introduce it? Maybe we should start with workshops before we get to a town hall and drop something. And that's governance, right? Like that initial part of the process is where the issue is, rather than us digging in on DREPs because it's already been decided for us that we need them. I mean, I'm one of those people that do we actually need them? Yeah. Right? But the letter is framed as, you've told us we need these things, this is how we'd like to do it, right? So actually the governance is earlier.
Absolutely, Joe. And I think what I'd like to stress what you're just saying, because I think Dora even said this to me. This is what we're for. This is what governance oversight is for. It's to say, is IOG introducing governance changes in the best way that they could? That's what we're here to decide. So
right.
Vanessa.
Yeah, I just want to throw another little side idea into the mix. I know that the proposal specifies surveys, but I find surveys quite an IOG way of working, and I just wonder if there might be other ways. As somebody with an oral history background, it occurs to me that maybe a series of oral history interviews with people who have been key involved with the whole DREPs thing. Somebody who's standing as a DREP, somebody who opposes DREPs, somebody at IOG who introduced DREPs, I don't know. But a more qualitative approach might be quite interesting, I think.
And as an action item, I'll take it on. I'll look back at this recording and say, I think that the only way forward is to maybe share a document on looking at the deliverables, like surveys, retrospectives, and reports, and asking the question of, is this an appropriate, how do we tweak that to make it an appropriate response given the circumstances that we face? And the circumstances that we face is oversight of some, really it's oversight of the nature of how things have been delivered, because nothing has been delivered.
But I'll just interject quickly too, though. I think those kind of great thoughts should go into our Fund 8 proposal, which
Absolutely.
has no content right now. And rather than trying to change the focus of what Steve and Phil and others put together for this effort, it's a little late to change dramatically what was planned for this project. We're underway.
Yeah, we have
Does
to
a
keep.
sur-
You're gone for.
Sorry, just back to Vanessa's point, does a survey have to be a written survey, or can we survey verbally with a recording?
It's up to
good
us.
question.
I think it's going to be up to us.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. She's suggested quite a good option to get some good value about the history of DREP from the people who are pushing it in IOG and various other community members. We can put a call out, and that could be more valuable information than some written survey with a few people participating in it, right? So something to think about. Joe's had her hand up for a bit there. Sorry.
Yeah,
Joe.
sorry. Yeah, Joe.
So with the DREPs thing, there is already a lot of data. So there's you know, a 3-4 hour conversation. I don't know how long it was, but it felt like it was 4 hours. The last swarm conversation about it. And you know, I asked a couple of times in the chat, you know, is somebody saving the chat for this? Because there was a huge amount of content in the chat. So in terms of what the community feels about DREPs, we've already got a hell of a lot of data that we can be using for that particular item. The other thing, which is, you know, related to Vanessa's point, oral surveying, you know, doing the qualitative stuff rather than the quantitative stuff is awesome. But there are also other tools that we should consider that maybe we should price up and put into the Fund 8 proposal, like the Sense Maker tool, which uses a combination.
Yeah, I mean, on Oversight, you're right, Joe. There's already the letter. Essentially, the DREP initiative was distilled into Joey's letter that he presented at Catalyst Circle. So from an oversight perspective, all the stuff that we can oversee is already there. I think we need to be careful not to do the work that people are already doing. You know, we just need to check on the work.
No, I'm not suggesting doing the work. What I'm suggesting is that the process was our community's governance process was to react to the dropping of a thing, right? Yeah. Then there were 25 people, 50 people in that swarm, you know, like that was our process.
If we can move, Matthias, you had your hand up. And then if we could stop there and move on to another item, because we need to close down soon.
It's essentially the same things that have been said right now and also are put in the chat. I just wanted to point out that I think, you know, those surveying methods, whatever those are we decide on, should be inclusive, right? And because I love Swarm. Saturday is my only day that I will not be Cardano.
Exactly,
right? And the other thing is also, because there's already a huge body of knowledge being produced, right? In those sessions, for example, in surveys, it's just a matter of surfacing that and make it available. And that's the question. Is the analysis a part? Is our job the analysis? Because we just don't want to give it up to IOG and they interpret it in a way that, oh yeah, that's totally in line what we are doing. We're doing great, right? But the analysis of all that, and this is what Vanessa pointed to in the chat as well, is a critical part, but it is also so much more. So again, scope, right? Maybe that's a discussion.
Yeah, that's what's come out. That's what's come out of this meeting overall is the need, the big focus on scope. We've only got less than 5 minutes left. There's 3 items left, but really, I think I can wrap up some of them. On the Fund 8 proposal, as you were saying, Kenrick, there hasn't been much written in that. I was partly waiting for this meeting to kind of see. I'll look back at the recording of this meeting. I think the proposal in some ways can write itself because it's clear we need to make it far more generic, the proposal, so that we can decide how we want to survey or do reports ourselves. And I'll increase the funding a bit more. Again, we can do this asynchronously via Discord or between ourselves So I'll ask anyone here if you provide input. There's that I can share there's already a shareable editable Word document of the proposal. But I'll as there's only 4 days left, I've got an idea to expand the budget for it much more than we have at the moment, so we can pay ourselves a bit more better, and then encompass the scope that we may want to expand to. On meeting times, okay, yeah, how much flexibility is there in meeting times? I know that some people can't meet beyond, particularly Alison, for example, can't meet beyond around 16:30 UTC, but that leaves the possibility. I know, Joe, that this is very early for you or very late for you.
This is great. Like 5 o'clock in the morning is fine. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, not so much.
I think the problem is some people can't stay too much after. So is the 1600 start too early for you, or 1600 UTC? Is that too early?
What this was in UTC, whatever this is in UTC, what is it now?
It's now 1700 UTC. So
yeah,
well,
so
but that would
almost.
That would be too late for Alison. So the question,
where is Alison?
It's more about her commitments. She's in Europe, but she has childcare commitments. Yeah. So can you make 1600 UTC, or do we?
Yeah, no, 1600 is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1400 that's an issue. That's 3 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know where that comes from, because maybe that's an error, because there was never going to be a 1400 meeting. But there's any other? Okay, while we're on meeting times, we've got 1 minute left. Is there any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, just to be clear, we started today at 1600 UTC, correct?
Yeah.
And so you're saying that's going to be fine to stick with. Yeah, that's fine for me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it dropped into my calendar in April, it changes to 1300 UTC for some reason. I don't know why.
That's weird. I think the calendar invites are acting weirdly, because your one disappeared, didn't it, Kimrick?
It did. It's gone.
Yeah,
It
which
was
is
very-
yeah.
like
Maybe it's not taking daylight saving or something into account or something.
Okay. Well, to be clear,
which will be a thing for us for next week or
okay.
the week after in the US.
Okay, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But to be clear, governance oversight for the next 3 months is going to be every 2 weeks at 1600 UTC, and this audit circle is going to be after 1800. It's going to be 1800 UTC.
I'm aware of the time. I'm not sure whether we actually established any action points other than Alison's between now and next meeting. Are we going to have? Are we going to arrange something asynchronously that we're going to work on, or wait till the next meeting to decide?
As we discussed, I couldn't take the notes properly. So what I'll do is I'll look back at this recording and pick up action items from the recording in relation to the notes, Phil. And but bear in mind that this is a proposal week, so it may be a few days before you see this. So I'll do my best. And
then we enter CA week.
I know.
That's fine.
My main priority is really going to be the proposal.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do the proposal. The proposal I may ask people here for feedback on the proposal before you see actions from this meeting, because of the priorities of timing. And the last item, which I know is unfortunately we don't have much time to discuss this, but something to bear in mind, is how can we reach out to different language communities for governance oversight? And this is a very important issue. So I know if anyone has to go, but if we can talk about this now.
I do need to shoot off. I need to be somewhere before.
Okay, I'll feed you back, Phil, on what people say.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I will be around, so speak to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Phil.
Well, meeting is starting.
So does anyone have any thoughts on how we can reach out to different language communities for what we are doing?
Can we include this as part of our fund date proposal? Is that there needs to be either and you know, it could be either, you know, more members with other language skills in CGO, and or, you know, some, here we'd call it a koha, but, you know, it's some contribution to, you know, people in the Eastern Town Hall and the Pacific Town Hall and the Latin Town Hall and the, you know, Russian Town Hall. You know, we should have one of those, to actually, you know, provide some support if we do, you know, if we decide to use a survey tool, you know, this needs to be in 15 different languages. Can we, you know, pay somebody to actually do that work? Can we keep that?
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot, everyone shot their hands up quickly, so I can't remember who was first. So Vanessa, were you first? Or?
Just really quickly, just to make people aware that the Latin American community are starting to pioneer a translation service, and they've actually set prices and everything, so we can bear that in mind for anything we do in writing.
Awesome.
Matthias?
I think it was Table first.
Oh, Tiva, sorry.
I think these hands are in sequence, so Matthias is first.
It does.
Okay. So the Cardano Foundation, the ambassadors there, they have a paid translator position. I think that usually applies only to Cardano Foundation content, but that is another avenue that I can reach out to, because not all of those folks are actually involved in Catalyst. They're kind of separate in a way. So I'll reach out if surveys need to be translated. I think that's something that we can rely on that community as well.
That's interesting, Matthias, because it also kind of raises the tangential issue of our relationship with Cardano Foundation as well, which is quite intriguing. But yeah, well, let's not go there right now. But Tiva.
Eastern Town Hall with the Robert O'Brien group, they are doing translations, and so if we have some already material what just needs to be translated, I think it can be arranged. But are you talking about it for this fund surveys, or this is another allocation budget, so we can actually incentivize this action?
Well, partly it's going to go in the Fund 8 proposal, obviously, because it makes sense to. I suppose up until then, it's going to be a question of volunteers and preparing for it, Chivo. So reaching out, but we don't have the resources right now, but it will go in the Fund 8 proposal. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to overrun the meeting. I tried to keep it focused.
Yeah, no, this is good.
If there's any other business, I'll open the floor up if anyone wants to comment. I don't have a feedback form, maybe I should do, but the
Get some sleep, Stephen. You're a machine, man.
Okay.
Good advice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming and contribution, and we've got a lot of work to do, so I will document everything and let you know over the next few days. Thank you.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thanks.